Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? I'm doing great because there's finally something new to talk about. I don't have to farm like 3-week-old content anymore. Yippee! Be honest, did I do the yippee better than the original? I think I did. Whatever. Anyway, we are here today because, in case you hadn't heard yet, there was this whole drama surrounding Phantom Blade Zero, or more so the developers. Because, in case you didn't know, there's this game coming out soon called Phantom Blade Zero. It's only coming to PlayStation and PC as of right now. And they don't have an exclusivity deal with Sony. They just don't want to develop for Xbox because they're a Chinese developer. And the game is primarily being marketed towards Eastern audiences, where, you know, Xbox isn't exactly very popular. And basically a few days ago, I believe it was on the 3rd of August, this website that it's in a different language, I think it's called Gameplays Cassie, something like that. They did an interview with one of the developers on Phantom Blade Zero, and that developer said, quote, "Nobody needs an Xbox," which I'm not here to agree or disagree with that statement. I'm just gonna say it's kind of wild that a dev would say that, especially when they're not in an exclusivity contract with Sony or anything like that. So basically that happened, and then a bunch of other news outlets started picking up on that. They were posting about it. And this statement became such a big deal that the Phantom Blade Zero Twitter account had to put out this statement. Recently, we noticed that some media outlets have claimed to have interviewed an unnamed developer from S-Game at China Joy, who seems to have made some statements regarding the release platforms and strategy for Phantom Blade Zero. We want to clarify that these claim statements do not represent S-Game's values or culture, as we believe in making our games accessible to everyone and have not rolled out any platforms for Phantom Blade Zero. We are hard at work on both the development and publishing fronts to ensure that as many players as possible can enjoy our game at release and in the future. Our team is looking forward to sharing more development updates soon, and we are excited to bring our world premiere demo to Gamescom this month. So basically, they confirmed that Xbox is not completely ruled out. It's just they're not going to develop for it right now because, again, the audience that they're looking at, which is the Eastern audience, not too many of them have Xboxes, especially in China, which, again, is where this development studio is. So there you go. Problem solved. They clarified this one dev's statements doesn't represent the entire company's views, and it's not even entirely ruled out that the game could come to Xbox. Now, will it? I mean, we'll have to see, but point is, it's not impossible, and the devs are not opposed to it. But, of course, upon reading this statement, Reforge Gaming, aka DSP Forge, as I like to call him, went on stream to damage control the statement, and he basically said, oh, the developers feel the same way, but they just said it in a different way this time. So I figured we'd take a look at that today. And real quick, before we get into this, pretty much every Reforge clip I get, not just in this video, but pretty much ever, has been from Astro Cyborg on Twitter, so shout out to him. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into Reforge's damage control.
Developers, I do want to say there has been a point of clarification, and we put like a little disclaimer at the bottom of the video about what the makers of Phantom Blade Zero said. It was essentially a translation error, but they were still communicating the same thing, that the demand for the Xbox is low, that it doesn't quite do very well in the market that they're focused on. And so I think they were answering that question honestly, and it got interpreted to sound a bit more harsh, because if you read the quote in its totality, as I did in the video, they do indicate the market that it struggles in, and you know, a lot of people from that market don't like making games for Xbox. So,
well, you say it was a translation error. I don't know how much I believe that, because the tweet from Phantom Blade Zero on Twitter did not mention a translation error. They just said, hey, these values don't align with ours. So yeah, I don't know if I buy that it was a translation error. I think that is what was intended to be said, but that was just how that one developer felt specifically. And notice how he said right there, they're not porting the game to Xbox because Xbox doesn't do well in the market they're targeting, aka the East, especially Asia. Also, I just realized he just said they were communicating the same thing. No, they weren't. The original statement said nobody needs an Xbox. This tweet here says, oh, that doesn't align with us. We don't agree with that. In fact, in this statement, they never even mentioned the console being unpopular in the East or anything like that. All they said is they haven't ruled out the possibility of bringing it to other platforms besides PC and PlayStation. So, if anything, you're kind of putting words in their mouth. But just you wait, dear viewer, it only gets worse from here.
I don't think they even really necessarily, if you read their comment on Twitter, the developers from that game did not post a retraction. They didn't say, oh, hey, we didn't say that. They said that doesn't represent our value and our culture, right? The culture and the values they hold as a company. So they weren't doing a retraction like, hey, we didn't say that. They were saying, oh, that doesn't represent us because the translation was more harsh. They were pretty diplomatic in how they answered the question. But the point stands. It's another developer basically saying there is a lack of motivation or a lack of interest in making or bringing a game to Xbox, and we also now have it on good authority from both the makers of Black Myth Wukong and Phantom Blade Zero. They don't have exclusivity deals with PlayStation, so we can put those rumors and theories to bed, and I don't know if we'll see anybody actually post retractions or updates or new articles now the developers have actually spoken to the fact that there is no exclusivity deal on those. So
okay, yeah, so fine, they didn't post a retraction because they didn't even make the statement to begin with. It was just one of the developers who worked there. Now, if it were something the Phantom Blade Zero account themselves tweeted out and then later they tweeted this out, that would be a retraction, sure. But either way, the point stands that they don't agree with what that person said, which is why they came out and made that statement. Because guess what? Even if only one person from the company who isn't even named makes a statement like that, everybody believes that the entire company feels that way. And also you say, oh, it's yet another developer skipping Xbox and they don't even have an exclusivity deal with PlayStation. Reforge, you want to know what's consistent about the Black Myth Wukong developers and the Phantom Blade Zero developers? They're both Chinese, and both their games are catering much more to an Eastern audience. Of course they're not going to bring their game to Xbox. It probably wouldn't sell very well there, if we're being honest. But now it's time to get into the second clip, and this should be very interesting. So let's get into it. Hold on to your brain cells for dear life.
I was actually shocked. I think the thing that I found the most shocking is people thought that when the developers, posted what they did about Phantom Blade Zero, that it was a retraction. I was like, did you read what they said? They didn't retract the statement. They just said that it didn't represent how they feel. It was so PR. I was like, I don't think they're retracting. I think they're sort of being like, hey, that doesn't represent what we think. So if one developer got a little out of pocket or a little gruff in their answer, they're like, yeah, that doesn't represent our values.
I mean, it's a little weird, and honestly, I'd like to know what you guys think. Was it a retraction or was it not? I honestly kind of agree with him, and I don't think it was a retraction, because it's not like, again, the Twitter account made a statement saying that, and then later they said, hey, that actually doesn't align with what we believe. It was an individual developer saying something, and then they said, oh, hey, we don't agree with that. But whatever, whether it was a retraction or not isn't important. What's important is that the studio doesn't feel that way, and that got cleared up. I honestly don't know why he's so hung up on this retraction thing, but whatever. Wait, I just realized something. Oh my god, remember when Reforge said persnickety that one time to sound smart? This would be him being persnickety. Let's go, boys. We caught Reforge being persnickety. God, I still can't get over that. That clip lives rent-free in my head. I still remember the first time we heard him say that on stream. We were losing it.
They weren't saying that it wasn't said, and even now that they're going to claim, oh, it was a translation error. Well, okay, the translation's not really any better. It's obviously more diplomatic, but they said, we apologize for the term no one needs this platform. The correct term is a platform that does not find demand. As you can see in the source, that is on the Reforge.com website. Access it here. So a platform that does not find demand. It's the same answer. It's, why aren't you making your game for Xbox? Instead of them saying, well, no one needs that platform, they said, it's a platform that doesn't have demand. Like, what? They're saying the same thing.
Okay, so the correct translation isn't much better, but it still is better. There's a big difference between saying, oh, nobody needs this platform, and oh, we're not putting this game on this platform because this platform is not popular in the market in which we're trying to sell this game. And I know somebody's gonna say, oh, well, actually, they said the platform doesn't find demand at all. But, I mean, come on. In this context, we know they're talking about the Eastern market specifically. Because even if the demand for Xbox is a lot lower than for PlayStation, there is still a demand for Xbox consoles, at least in the US. Again, it's all about the context of the situation. It's Asian developers marketing to an Asian audience in Asian countries. Guess where Xbox doesn't have high demand? Asia. That should be it right there, but nope, we gotta drag this out and make it a whole thing. Again, seems a bit persnickety to me, as Reforge would say.
Limited budget means you're going to have to make those hard decisions about, well, where are we going to put our game? Not everybody has the budget of a big giant AAA title that can afford to put their game everywhere. It's expensive. I said this many times. I said, limiting the reach of a game is incredibly helpful.
You probably noticed I jumped ahead right there, and that's just because he wasn't really saying anything I could comment on. But this is definitely something I can comment on. I love that he says limiting the reach of a game is helpful. When, let's go back to the tweet that Phantom Blade Zero put out real quick. They literally said, we believe in making our games accessible to everyone and have not ruled out any platforms for Phantom Blade Zero. But you know what? If limiting the reach of a game is so helpful, then screw it. Let's just not even put the game on PC. Only put Phantom Blade Zero on PlayStation. See how well it does then. I mean, just ask Final Fantasy 16 or Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Games that were helped so much by only being on one platform that they still perform terribly despite only being developed for PS5. And they sold so well that Square Enix is basically ending PlayStation exclusivity. Now, let me make it clear. If the Phantom Blade Zero devs were to put extra money into making an Xbox port and then the Xbox port didn't sell well, that would probably be a waste of money. However, again, like the statement said, no platform has been ruled out entirely. Who knows, maybe Phantom Blade Zero skips Xbox at launch and then 6 months later, a year later, it comes over. It's not like the Xbox port of the game could never happen, but that's what you're acting like.
More work for an inferior product. It's just the truth. That's the facts. You're doing more work for a product that has worse saturation and then will also make your game look worse. That you want to talk about motivating a developer to not make a game for your platform? Xbox came up with the perfect recipe. They're like, well, we're not going to make enough. We're not going to prioritize hardware. We're not going to have a very good cadence of big first-party killer apps to drive console sales. We have the belief that we can't out-console Nintendo and Sony, so we're not going to really even attempt to compete there. Oh, and we also made a split hardware decision, overpromised on what the weaker system could do, basically completely misrepresented the product to the point that we've unlisted the video on our own, YouTube channel because it's basically nothing but lies. Oh, and when you make a game for our platform, you're going to have to do extra work for a smaller consumer base, and then the box that we basically lied about is going to make your game look worse. Like, you couldn't have written a worse recipe for motivating developers to not want to make games for your platform. And then, if you're curious why Xbox games keep getting delayed and coming out in rough shape, you have your answer.
I just skipped ahead again, but it was just him talking about members and stuff. And you guys know how much I love Reforge when he talks about members. So for the sake of me not having an aneurysm, we're gonna skip over that part. But it's just so funny to me. He goes on this whole minute-plus rant about all these reasons why devs wouldn't want to work on Xbox. Yet most third-party devs still release their games on Xbox. And the only two devs we're talking about in this case are Chinese devs who are making games catered to an Eastern audience, where Xbox is not popular. And on top of that, none of the stuff he just mentioned was even mentioned in the tweet from Phantom Blade Zero. Like, if they had said, oh yeah, we're skipping Xbox for now because of the Series S or something, then he might have a point. They never said anything about that. Hell, even the guy who originally got interviewed who said no one needs an Xbox, even he didn't mention any of that stuff that Reforge just mentioned. In fact, in the tweet where Astro put this clip, he said, remember guys, he doesn't hate Xbox, hashtag not a Sony pony. Like, yeah, this dude claims to not be a pony, and then he goes off on all these rants like this when they have pretty much no connection to the topic at hand. Come on, dude, just admit it. We know it's true, you know it's true, just say it. Just say it!
You have your answer. It's like, just open your eyes. Xbox's hardware decisions have completely sabotaged all of their developers and is now driving third-party devs away. There's no other way to look at it. Like, if you think that's being a fanboy, I'm sorry. Facts don't care about your fandom, right? The facts do not care about your fandom. The facts are just that. They don't care if you love a platform or hate a platform. Those are the facts. Those are the decisions that Xbox made.
I mean, just saying that Xbox has made a lot of bad decisions isn't being a fanboy. But the fanboy part comes in again when you realize that this entire rant you just went on had nothing to do with the topic at hand. Yes, Phantom Blade Zero is skipping Xbox, at least for now. But pretty much nothing mentioned by you in that rant just there was said by the developers. It's like one of those tell me how you really feel moments. Like, I mean, there's Halo Infinite gameplay in the background. You guys remember that part in Halo Infinite where Master Chief is arguing with the weapon and then he calls her Cortana by accident?
You don't understand.
Try me.
Cortana. It's gone.
I know, not the most one-to-one comparison, but you get what I'm saying, right? Reforge gets really passionate, and then his hate for Xbox leaks out, and I guess unlike Chief here, he doesn't really realize it. Like, at least in that scene there, Chief stops and he's like, oh god, what did I just say? Reforge, unfortunately, is not self-aware enough to catch himself in those moments, so he says all this dumb stuff and then wonders why people make fun of him. I mean, Reforge, I know you like listening to the sound of your own voice, maybe you should actually listen to what you're saying. But what am I saying? That's too much to ask.
And here we sit. Like, why do you think the hardware sales continue to plummet and drop? They didn't make a compelling case or reason to buy. They didn't. They constrained their own distribution of the console. The Series X, the thing they marketed first. So it's like, none of this should be surprising at all. And that's why it's like all the Xbox podcasts or the talking heads or the big Xbox fans that are like, yeah, this is basically a lost cause at this point. This is basically over. It's like, well, yeah, it's been over.
I mean, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. How many times are people gonna say it's over for Xbox before it is actually over? Like, I swear to God, the amount of times I've seen Xbox is dead, it's over for them, blah, 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 and yet they continue to exist. And even though their hardware might be down, I'm fairly certain their overall revenue is at record levels. And ultimately, that's what they care about. If anything, putting less of a focus on the consoles might actually be to their benefit. I'm not gonna sit here and claim that. I'm just gonna say that might be the case. But anyway, with all that being said, we finally made it to the end. And you know what? If you made it this far, hold up. I have something for you. I have some of those gummy twin snakes. Here, let me just take my pop filter down. I'll put one through the mic. It's gonna come out your speaker. Here, have it. But in all seriousness, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, especially if you made it to the end. I truly do appreciate it. Be sure to like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more. Join us every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time for Salt streams, and I will catch you all next time.